Alright, 2.4a to wrap up this week's material. You'll start, I don't think you do 2.4b, but 2.4 is about writing linear equations. Again, this is review because you did do this in Algebra 1. Again, if you ever need me to send you somewhere in my Algebra 1 videos, I can always send you a link and you can watch it and kind of get that stuff back to memory. Remember, I've been pretty much designing my own textbooks for about the last 4 years. So I have videos for most of this stuff somewhere, and I could easily just look it up, find it, and send you a link where I have actually gone in depth on all this stuff. But again, because your best learning comes from practice, let's just get to the point instead of going through all that stuff and listening to me talk forever. Few options of writing an equation of a line. Both of them require use of its slope. I'll be teaching the method using slope-intercept formula. There was something called point slope. If you want to know about point slope, feel free to email me and I'll send you to the material for point slope, but I do not teach point slope because to me it is a useless thing to memorize. And I know, again, to the people who are extremely can't think of a better word, religious about this stuff, I don't say that to say that the formula is not useful. I say that there's so many things you have to memorize. Why memorize two things when one thing does the job? So I will be teaching using the slope-intercept formula, y equals mx plus b. So here's what I do. If it says write the equation of a line, once they want the equation of a line in slope-intercept form, I write y equals mx plus b. I then plug in what I know. Do I have a y? Yep, it's right here. Remember, it's x comma y, so I would put 11 in for y. Do I have an m, which means slope? Yep, slope of 6, which means I put a 6 here. Do I have an x? Yep, it's 5. I just don't have a b, and that's what I'm looking for. Now I use algebra. 11 equals 30 plus b. I subtract 30 from both sides, getting negative 19 for b. And then I take this answer and this answer, and I put it in my final answer here. Slope is 6, so it would be 6x. B is negative 19. That is it. And the beauty of this is that I can check my answer here whenever I do write the equation line, and I can actually plug x in for this formula. 6 times 5 minus 19 equals, notice that you get the answer of 11, which is what you should get for y. So whenever you do write the equation of a line, you can always check your answer by plugging it back in to make sure that it worked. This is the one you need to be ready for because this is your test level question because of the fraction. So pay attention to this process. Make sure that you again copy it down and do what you need to do to practice it and master it. Again, they want the equation of a line, so I write y equals mx plus b. And I plug in what I have. Negative 1 is y. 8 is my m. I'm sorry. Negative 3/4 is my m. 8 is my x. Plus b. So negative 1 equals negative 3/4 times 8 plus b. I think we learned last time that whenever you multiply a whole number times a fraction, you multiply it to the top. So negative 1 equals negative 24 over 4 plus b. Luckily for this one, which I'll probably have to make another one up for you because that's not like your homework, this simplifies to be negative 1 equals 6, negative 6 plus b, which means when I go to add 6 to both sides, I get 5 for b. Which means that my final answer with b and my number here is y equals negative 3/4 x, because that's your slope, plus 5 because my 5 was positive. Again, you can check this out by taking your calculator, do negative 3/4 times x in this case, which is 8, plus 5, and then you cross your fingers and hope you get it right. The calculator says negative 1. I have a negative 1, so we're good. My question for you, though, is what happens if it was something like 3 equals 2/3 times 7 plus b? This is the one you want to write down. Again, that would be 3 equals 14 over 3 plus b, and the reason why I gave you the question where I had you get rid of the fraction is for this, because most of us when working don't want to deal with the 14/3. And so if you remember the question that I hoped you got right, and even if you didn't ask about it, you might want to do it now. We multiply everything by the number that's on the bottom, getting 9 equals 14 plus 3b. We move our 14 by subtracting, getting negative 5 equals 3b. You divide by 3, getting negative 5 over 3. And you'll say, well, you rushed through that. Well, I will say I gave you plenty of time to practice it. If you have a question on this process, just make sure you ask me about it, and I will show it and explain it better in person. But again, that is the reason why last chapter you had a question that said, what do you multiply by, and rewrite it without fractions, because this question is intimidating for everybody, including myself, even though I've been doing it for a while. So it doesn't intimidate me as much, but this is a lot easier to solve. And so you do want to know how to get rid of fractions because it does help you out. Another thing they'll be talking about is parallel perpendicular. Two lines are parallel if they have the same slope. Now this is kind of new because I don't think every Algebra 1 teacher covered it. I know I usually don't because time is precious. Two lines are perpendicular if their slopes are opposite reciprocals of each other. You know visually that perpendicular means a 90-degree angle. And so parallel means they go the same direction, which means obviously they have the same slant. Perpendicular means that it should be opposite reciprocals. So this is again something that will be on your test. Make sure you're jotting down whatever you need to so you'll be ready. Find slopes that are parallel and perpendicular to the given situations. So this question here, we see that y is alone. We remember that y equals mx plus b is slope-intercept form, which means that the slope here is 5/3. That means the parallel slope is 5/3 because it's going to be the same. The perpendicular slope is going to be taking 5/3, and opposite reciprocals is two words. It is switch it and flip it, or however you want to do that. I usually say flip and switch. So what it means is take the 3/5, flip it over, and switch the sign. That is your perpendicular slope, negative 3/5. Looking at B, your parallel slope is going to be the slope of this formula. Y is isolated, which means that the slope of this is obviously 8. The perpendicular slope is the one where it takes a little bit of thought, because you got to remember that 8 as a fraction is 8/1. So when you flip it, 8/1 turns into 1/8, and you have to switch the sign. It would be a negative 1/8. Those would be your perpendicular and parallel slopes. Again, ask about it if there are issues. I will be glad to explain in depth, but I'm trying to make sure I get you your material without making you stare at the computer for 20 minutes. C, this is the one where you have to do some work in terms of last chapter, because in order to get the slope of this, I have to get y alone, which means the first thing I will do is move my 5x over here. Now again, I am doing this in a Algebra 2 level, which means that I am not going to write minus 5x because I know that to move this I have to switch it. So it becomes 2y equals negative 5x plus 8. And then what I'm going to do is I will show this because it's important. Divide everything by 2, and y equals negative 5/2x plus 4. Simplifying both fractions. And my slope on this is negative 5/2, which means my parallel slope is going to be negative 5/2. My perpendicular slope is going to be flip and switch. So flip it, which would be 2/5. It was negative, which means leave it positive. There you go. Alright. Write an equation line passes through the point 6, negative 3, and is perpendicular to the line 4x minus 3y equals 9. This is where you have your writing equations on an Algebra 2 level. Again, this is going to be what you're going to see on your work. So here we go. First off, it says write an equation of a line. So I know I'm going to use y equals mx plus b. I have a y, which is here, negative 3. I do not have a m. I do have an x. So what I want to do is find the slope and pay attention to your information. It's telling me everything I need to know. It is perpendicular to this line, which means I have to solve this. Again, that's on hold. I have to solve this to kind of get to what I need to find the slope. So 4x minus 3y equals 9. Again, moving that over to be negative 3y equals negative 4x plus 9. Trick I used before, again, was to keep myself from making a mistake, is I will flip all the signs. That was negative, and so I've switched it, and then I'll divide everything by 3, which means everything goes over 3. Everything goes over 3. 9 divided by 3 is 3. Which means that the slope of this is 4/3. Do I want to use 4/3? No. And this is why you have to make sure you know how to do this part. Perpendicular means flip it and switch it, so it would actually be negative 3/4 times x, which in this case is 6, plus b. That means that negative 3 is equal to negative 18 over 4, because remember I want to move the negative to the top, plus b. I am now going to get rid of the fraction by multiplying everything by 4, which makes this negative 12. Remember, these two 4's cancel, making negative 18 plus 4b. I then add 18, getting the answer of 6 equals 4b, and then divide by 4 and reduce, getting the answer of 3 over 2 equals b. Feel free to do the work on algebra to fill in those blanks, but again, I am working at an algebra 2 level, and we did do solving last chapter, so some of this stuff, actually you should know how to do this stuff if you're here right now, so that's the key thing. The formula is y equals, your slope that we use is negative 3/4 x plus 3 over 2. And again, the good news is you can check it. As long as our slope is right, we can still check it. So negative 3/4 times 6 plus 3 over 2. This would be a perfect time for me to miss it. Whew, I got it right. There you go. Typing that in, I got negative 3. That is a negative 3. It equals y, which means I did okay. Write the equation of the line passing through negative 8, 9, and negative 12, 27. So here, again, you know you want the equation of the line, so it's y equals mx plus b. I do have a y, and I'm just going to use one point, this first point here, so I'll circle it. My y is negative 9. I do not have an m, and this is why you also have to know how to do it using your formula, which for me I usually turn into a table, if you remember from last chapter or last section. That means I put 27 minus negative 9 over negative 12 minus negative 8. This turns into 36. This turns into negative 4, giving us negative 9, times x, which in this case is negative 8, plus b. What is hard about Algebra 2? If you don't have your skill set from Algebra 1, you are going to get stuck. Again, this was write the equation. I did not have m, so I had to use a process that I'm supposed to know, which is how to find slope using this, find the slope, and then go back over here and start plugging it back in. Other than that, negative 9 equals 72 plus b. That would be subtracting 72, so negative 81 equals b, which means my formula should be y equals m, which is negative 9x minus 81. Should be. We'll see. Again, the good news is I can check it. Negative 9 parentheses negative 8 minus 81. Cross my fingers. Notice how I get negative 9, which is what I'm supposed to get here, and it should work on both of them. Negative 9 times negative 12, close, minus 81 equals 27, which means my answer is right. There is one more question that we have to do, and it is your quote-unquote trick problem. It is a test question. You will see this again. Find the value of k, so the graph of kx plus 5y equals 8 is parallel to the line through 7, negative k, and 9, negative 4. Two things here. First off, they give me a formula. Second off, they give me 2 points, which means I can find the slope, and they said parallel, which means it should be the same slope. So the slope of this should equal the slope of these 2 points. And so what I'm going to do is put those points into a table. And these two things should equal each other in terms of slope, which means I have to do literal equations, which means I have to do 5y equals negative kx plus 8. Remember, that's how I find the slope of an equation, is by getting y by itself. I then divide everything by 5, getting y equals negative k over 5x plus 8 over 5. But the bottom line here is the slope of this equation is negative k over 5. That is important. Again, they gave me an equation. To find the slope of that equation, I get y by itself. I look at what's attached to x. To find the slope of this, I follow the format of the formula, which is negative 4 minus negative k over 9 minus 7, which is negative 4 plus k over 2. This is the slope of that formula. So here's the slope of the 2 points in the best form possible. Here is the slope of the equation. It says it's parallel, which means these two slopes should be the same. That means I should be able to take negative k over 5. Remember, if it's in front, I simply put it on top so I don't lose it. equals negative 4 plus k over 2. And I am now in proportion mode. So this means I get negative 2k equals negative 20 plus 5k. I would usually move the smaller k, but that would make me move a lot, so I'm just going to go ahead and send it over here, getting negative 7k, because remember I have to subtract it, and then dividing by 7 you get 20 over 7 as your answer. I am not going to check that, but I will say that the computer is right because I spent 45 minutes programming this thing. That is 20 over 7, by the way. I spent 20 minutes programming this thing. I'm sorry, 40 minutes programming this thing and checking it and checking it and checking it. So the computer version of this in there works. If you get the right answer, that's great. If you did not get the right answer, send me a picture of your work. You will notice that a lot of these questions do not require to show your work on the computer, which means you will have to actually send me your work to help you. But just make sure it's clear, because some of you actually put a glare on it. But whatever it is, again, take your time. You got 3 lessons, which means that Friday is no lesson, and so you should be able to kind of have time to kind of absorb this stuff. And the key thing on this chapter is that you actually do absorb it, because chapter 1 was like a welcome to school chapter. This is a welcome to Algebra 2 chapter, which means that you are going to have to learn some things, so you are going to have to spend some time kind of practicing enough, again, to master that process so you actually can answer it at any time. Good luck.